وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. How is everyone doing today? MashaAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to be able to partake in many more Ramadans, to be able to see many more Ramadans, and grant us to have Ramadans that are never ever stagnant and in one space. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. What do I mean by is that your Ramadan, my beloved brothers and sisters, of last year cannot be better than the Ramadan of this year. My Ramadan of this year cannot be better than the Ramadan of next year. It should always be a state of increase, a state of becoming better, a state of drawing closer unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that to be achieved, my beloved brothers and sisters, for me to achieve a certain degree of increase in faith, increase in good action, it requires for me to shift away from those things that steers me to the counter of it. Whilst I find myself wanting to do a good deed, there are 1,000 things that is telling me not to do it. Whilst I would love to go to the masjid for Salatul Fajr or Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib or Isha, whatever what, there is 100 things that is stopping me from going. I need to take up dust now, I'm in a rush, I need to still go to the toilet, I'm tired. My wife wants me to take her to the shop, and you'll make a whole list and a plethora of things will pop up in your mind to stop and prevent you from going to the masjid. Why? Because that is how Shaitan had been programmed to infiltrate our thoughts, to infiltrate our minds, to infiltrate our hearts. There's always a blockage. To do something good, there's always a blockage. And only after crossing and jumping and breaking through that blockage, or over the blockage, do you find a good action. Wallahi, doing something good is almost always going against your nafs. What do I mean? If I want to do a good action, Allah has made it such that the good action that I want to do is surrounded by those things that I dislike. So what do I dislike? I dislike seeing my account going down. I dislike having to give money to somebody else. I dislike breaking my sleep routine or waking up earlier than I was supposed to. I dislike staying away from food. I dislike staying away from drink. I dislike staying away from my wife. And the list of dislikes will be written down, and it will just go down and down and down and down. But for me to get to the thing that my Allah wants from me, now I need to go through the thing that is disliked to me. But what is very important? I ask myself the question, what is more important? The thing that I dislike, or the thing that Allah wants me to do? The thing that I dislike, or the thing that Allah loves for me to do? What is more important? So when it comes to this question, and my entire talk every week is for myself firstly, but today it is also for myself, but it is more on an individual level. It's got nothing to do with anyone other than yourself. Other than yourself. What is the thing that is preventing me from doing a good action? Then I look, personally, I look at my asatidha, and I look at some of my colleagues and brothers, and I look at some other people throughout the world, and subhanAllah, They will already recited 5 and 6 and 7 and 10 khatams on the blessed month of Ramadan. And Allah, I'm still on my first one. But I'm a hafiz of the Quran. I'm a person that is supposed to be reciting the Quran very often. I'm on my first khatam. Somebody else is on his 10th already. Where do I look to firstly? When it comes to my akhirah, I look to those on top of me. Why? Because you don't aim to go down when it comes to your akhirah. Nor your dunya for that matter. You're always aiming up to go way closer to Allah. Not to get further away from my Allah. So, I'm inspired to do something good. But what is stopping me? My sleep is stopping me. Allah didn't say for most of those. Much of our work is done through it. Much of our work is done through this thing. But this device, wow, probably the best device Shaitan had ever invented. It's the amount of time that it takes swallows from me, the amount of etiquette that it has taken from our community, the amount of just evil that comes through it. There's a lot. And yes, it is a knife, and it comes down to how the one that holds the knife uses it. It could either cut your meal for this evening, or it could stab somebody and harm somebody else. Now, that's what it is. And there are many such tools in this world. But this thing takes too much of my time. Too much of my time. To the extent that it impedes on my worship of Allah. So how many of us uses this for knowledge? 50%, 60%? How many of us use it for business? 80%? How many of us uses it for leisure? 100%. How many of us uses it for other haram activities? Many. How many of us use it to listen to music? Many. How many of us looks at TikTok videos that women are in? Many. Now what does it become? Now all of the khair that I was trying to achieve through it is now mellowed down, or it's watered away. All of the khair. So you use it wisely. As a reminder to myself personally. That was a digression. But anyhow, so how do I get to the point where I'm also able to recite the Quran and love to recite the Quran and take such courage and pull that lekom Quran to baca? Like that guy. Allah is sitting 2 hours, he's just bacaing Quran and he's enjoying himself. I open my Mus'haf and I baca for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or half an hour. I get I will choose the baca, alhamdulillah, and you close the Quran. Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu used to speak about how is it possible that any individual opens up the Quran, the kalam of Allah, the word of Allah, and he closes it before he had come to the end of it. That's obviously coming from a heart that is completely pure. A heart with a complete and a major understanding of the kalam of Allah. A heart that is attached to Allah. That was Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, the third Khalifa of Islam. But you still find people that love reciting the Quran in the same manner. In our community, you find it. There are many of the ladies, the aunties that I know of. One of my beloved grand uncles sitting at the back. Every single day, the Quran is opened up. The Quran is recited. There are many people of such caliber in your midst that loves to recite the Quran. They don't hold the title of being a hafiz of the Quran, hold the title of being one that had memorized the Quran, that had gone to study for 3 years, or 6 years, or 7, 8, 9 years. But their love of the Quran is deeper than what mine is. How come? Why? The blockages, my beloved brothers and sisters. The blockages differ from person to person, and they become more the further away I am from my Allah. The further you are from Allah, the more speed bumps the easels. Right? So the masjid is here, in the middle, and the person coming from that door, he only catches one speed bump. The person coming from that door over there, he catches 3 speed bumps. But the one that's coming in from the gate, they still have to drive all the way around, and then coming to the masjid, they come to particularly 2 speed bumps. And each speed bump speaks to an item, a characteristic, a thing that I dislike. I don't want to do it. But for me to get into the masjid, I need to do it. So for the one that is coming from this door, he has already, my beloved brothers, achieved a certain degree of purity in the action that he is partaking in. Why? The reason for him achieving that is because of his consistency in doing that specific action. Whilst at the same time, consistency is not enough to bring about purity of the heart, as well as becoming, or as well as gaining the love of an action. No, rather it is sincerity in addition to making dua that Allah makes this action belong to me. I want to recite the Quran, but I don't know how. I'm going to look like a fool if I'm going to go ask the Imam since when. I've heard that so many times, and I'm like flabbergasted at the statement, like, you what? You don't want to learn how to recite Quran because you're afraid that the Imam is going to look at you. How? The Imam also had to learn the Quran at some stage in his life. You know things that the Imam doesn't know. You know things that the teacher of the Quran doesn't know. And the Imam and the teacher of the Quran and the Mu'allim and Mu'allimah knows things that you don't know. We are living in a world where we share with one another. It is cooperative. Jy gee 'n bietjie en ek gee 'n bietjie. You know something and I don't know something, and I know something and you don't know something. That is our lives. But now that one thing is already the biggest hurdle for me to get to my Quran. And then what stops me further from getting to my Quran? I must now get to a class. Oh, the Mu'allim is asking a fee also. The class is late at night. Oh, but we're having supper that night. Every single thing Shaitan throws in front of you to stop you from going to recite Quran, to learn how to recite the Quran. So that is the one that is closer. He has that advantage over me. He has already gone through all of that. Sometimes it is look at that Sheikh. I wish I can also make some like that. As he can because it finds him, I was biased of this. Or because of this and that person is reciting Quran. I don't know the journey that individual had gone through with his Quran. I didn't know that Hafiz of the Quran had to take 6 years of his life to memorize the Quran. And a quarter of that amount of time was spent in sleepless nights. And another 5% of that time was spent in giving up holidays. I didn't know those things. Why? Because I haven't traveled and I have not walked in his footsteps. So your journey, your way to Allah, as an individual, it differs from another person. One thing that stays in common is the qalb. It is the spiritual heart. And what about the spiritual heart, my beloved brothers and sisters? I explain to you this as follows. The one that is closer to me, he had achieved a certain sweetness, and I've mentioned it before already, in certain actions. The one that is further away is still working to achieve just the goal of doing the action. So when you look at somebody and he wakes up in the morning, early hours of the morning, and he's reciting the Quran. He wakes up in the early hours of the morning and he's making tahajjud salah. But that same individual looks at another uncle, another Buddha, and wow, look at this uncle, subhanAllah, he's getting thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and millions of rands as sadaqah. No, I wish I can also do that. And that person looks at another individual that is fasting, and that person is just fasting and fasting, and whilst there is a very select few that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed to achieve wilayah, to achieve closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through each and every action of goodness. His good character, his conduct in relation to his family members, his sadaqah, his Quran, his dhikr, his tahajjud salah, all of those things becomes what? A step for him closer to Allah. Whilst I'm still struggling with everything else, but this one action becomes me drawing closer to my Allah. And what is that one action? My Quran. Now how do I get that sweetness? That sweetness, my beloved brothers and sisters, comes through hard effort. Swami, Arabic, years of it, consistency, commitment to my Quran. Do you think a bodybuilder just goes from 30 pounds or 30 kgs to 140 or 120 overnight? Wallahi, they do that. Do you think an individual can just start running today and then he's running the marathon? To ask you this, ask a cyclist. I think there was some cycle tour now last week, right? You ask the one that has been doing it for the past 3, 4, 5 years, do you enjoy it? And some of you say, no, but I must do it because I need to stay in shape. But ask the individual that has been doing it for the past 8, 9, 10 years maybe. He tells, oh, what a lovely ride, man. I've been enjoying this cycling for so many years, and MashaAllah, how is there such a huge difference in answers? You know why? I'm pretty sure your mind will tell you why. The reason why is because that individual has been doing it so consistently that now it's become part of his routine and it's become part of something that he enjoys to do. I enjoy the feeling of the cramp or the pain or the whatever it may be while cycling or jogging or gymming. I enjoy it. But the one that is doing it for 1 to 3 years, I'm not buying. So the answers are going to be different. Now sometimes I imagine that was by Allah, it is just like that. Don't be amongst the imaginative people, my beloved brothers and sisters. We must be amongst the people of amal, of action. We must be practicing on that which Rasulullah had taught us. Only through that practice, only through that doing, what did I achieve? I will achieve some level of sweetness. Een lepeltjie suiker. Then maybe a teaspoon of honey. Then maybe a jar of honey. Until I'm completely drenched in the sweetness of that action. Until people would come past you and they would call you a person of that action. You know that person? Oh, what a generous man. You know that guy? Oh, Allah, that's a man of tahajjud. You know this uncle, that sister? She's a lady of Quran. Where did I get that rank? Or where did I get that status from? All of it comes from Allah firstly. But the reason is because the people continuously associate you with that. And this brings me to the hadith that I had made mention of, which is a teaching that our old and our senior people have always instilled within us. And that is that me and you and each and every one of us, we are upon the religion and the way of our companions. If I have got somebody of the Quran, I will be inspired to recite the Quran. But if I'm continuously only with people that are speaking about jamming, then you're going to be jamming probably sooner or later. Even though you're not somebody that jumps, you're going to end up jamming. Last week, Allah grant this young man a high place in Jannah to Firdaus. A young man from Nentergia, shot dead. Why was he shot dead? Because his companions were gangsters. According to some other friends of his, because it was friends of my brother-in-laws, his friends of friends was gangsters. Look how far that is apart. And he was shot dead for that. You were seen with the wrong crew, and you were judged to be part of that crew, and daar gaat ons weer af. Don't even be associated with the crew of the crew of the crew, my beloved brothers. Stay clear of that. Stay clear of it. Be the one that brings about the change in the environment. Make the change and associate the people that you are with the Quran. If not that, then bring the Quran to the people that you are with. I may not be the most proficient reciter of the Quran, but I can be an instrument of guidance to the Quran. No one is too little to be the greatest. No one. Because our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's companions were worse than many people, but they became the best. Why? How? Consistency. Connecting themselves with that which is pure. May Allah bless us with it, Amin Ya Rabbal Alameen. My beloved brothers and sisters, my final message with regards to our Quran is as follows. We are all going through some trial, tribulation, difficulty in our lives, without a doubt. And this is something that I harp on, but it is something that is important for us to understand. And what is that? It takes various forms, but never ever should we despair in our Allah. And the thing that is the closest to my Allah is that which has come from my Allah, which is the word of Allah. The thing that is closest to Allah, the thing that I can draw with the fastest to my Allah, is the kalam of Allah. It is the Quran. It is a means of solace. It is a means of sanity. It is a means of purification. It is a means of bringing families together. This is the Quran. The form that it takes is the form that you want to make it take. But the Quran to each person is different. I can open the Quran completely broken based upon the many sins that I have committed. And the Quran can just bring a certain degree of contentment to my heart. Whilst another individual opens the Quran because he had lost everything in his life, and Allah makes it easy for him. And then there's another person who had lost his mother or his father, and he recites the Quran, and the Quran just brings calm to his mind. And that is the Quran. The ultimate miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down to mankind. The ultimate. You know what is amazing? And I'll leave you with these two qisas. What is amazing of the Quran is that a few years ago, when Turkey was still a completely secularist country, they banned the printing of the Quran. For many, it is said, for many years, there was no Quran that were allowed to be printed in Turkey. knowing that Turkey was the capital of the Muslim Ummah. The Muslim Ummah. It was a capital for many, many centuries. And what happened? The fall of the Khilafah. And after the fall of the Khilafah, here we find a secularist leader. You're not allowed to, they closed off certain masajid. They closed off the duroos that were taking place in the masajid. Did that stop the people of Turkey from producing Quran? Wallahi, never once. You know where the duroos of the Quran were still taking place? Do I know why it is that there are still generations of people that still recited the Quran even though they were banned from printing it? Because the first madrasa that my son and my daughter sat in was their mother's lap. And that madrasa still continued the teaching of the Quran. It was what kept the spirituality of the people of Turkey to the degree that it is still to be found today. And yes, if you go to Turkey, you visit it, you find that two different worlds. It's a literal Western society, and then there's like a Muslim society, like two separate things. Why is this still alive now? Whilst they tried wiping it completely off the face of the earth, that stayed alive because of a commitment that the mother showed to the Quran. The second mention that I would like to mention is how our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam had instilled the Quran to be a means of strengthening this ummah. We all know what had taken place in Gaza. Now, what had happened in Gaza has been happening for the past 14 years in Syria. So a good colleague of mine returned recently from a visit to Syria because the borders were open and people could fly in and sit. And the few areas that were not conquered by the Assad regime, or the Assad regime were unable to grab back from the Sunni Ummah army. Now, in those areas, you found the halaqat of Quran taking place. And if you hear the stories, the grotesque stories that is being mentioned, oh ya salam. The stuff that he made mention to me is things that I can't even fathom with my mind. Disgusting things. You would imagine that a woman or a man or a son or a daughter would be completely broken. They would be complete out insane after witnessing what they speak about. Allah Azim, when you speak to them, the one thing that kept them sane was their Quran. The thing that kept them grounded was their Quran. The Quran is the greatest miracle. Let it not be something that I just put on my shelf. Let it be something that I live by, that I recite with, that I embody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our journeys with the Quran one that draws us closer to Him Jalla Jalaluhu. May we not be amongst the people that will be coming on the day of Qiyamah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question about the qira'ah of the Quran, and it will be said that I recited it for other people's sake, Ya Rabb. May we recite the Quran only for the sake of Allah. May we be amongst the people that are considered as a family of the Quran. In this blessed month of Ramadan, Ya Rabb, open up your doors of mercy upon this community, upon our ummah, upon the community of Cape Town, to be amongst the people and the families that will be considered as your people. The family of Allah, the family of the Quran, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us afiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us purity in this blessed month of Ramadan. Ameen.